Calling to order the opening of the meeting of April 19th, Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. Will the secretary please give us attendance?
6 directors present, Ms. Trowbridge, Dr. Martin, and Mrs. Kapka are absent.
But we have a quorum. Also in attendance is the superintendent and the administrative cabinet. Will you please join me in the pledge of the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the second meeting of the month. This is the meeting where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on a consent agenda, which includes those items that are routine or have been discussed at our work session last week. Details of all items, as well as minutes of past meeting, are available on the district website and posted agenda. I would note that our meeting observes the requirements of the Ridgeville Act 84 Sunshine Law, all amendments in our district policy. Also, it's also an opportunity to see if I can get through the agenda without skipping over the small stuff. So far, so good. I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
No.
If not, we will start with the board commendations. As soon as I get my hands up. Yeah, I had another copy that
Okay.
I had here off a little easier for me to read, but I'll manage. This is an opportunity for the board to recognize exceptional achievements of both staff and students. Details of many of these are on our website. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley basketball players, Taylor Henley and Cameron Twitten and Austin Hertz. They were named LLD All-Star Games, on the All-Star Game rosters. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley wrestlers at both varsity and junior high levels. They received postseason recognition from the Lancaster 11 LLE. First team, Keaton Fisher. Second team, Luke Morley and Mohammed Karayev. Honorable mentions to Luke Needham, Jonathan Lopez, Xander Ryder, and academic all-star status to Samuel Darachuk, Keaton Fisher, Matthew Lopez, Luke Morley, Luke Needham, Andrew Stoltzfus, Melvin Stoltzfus, Jacob Stoltzfus, Soren Stoltzfus, and Ryan Wrinklespread. At the junior high level, the junior high coach, Brandon Hershey, was named the junior high coach of the year, and the entire junior high squad received the Dr. Ted Rupp Junior High Sportsmanship Award. Congratulations to the GRG Husker Middle School Students of the Month. In 7th grade, Paige Hershey, Owen Zabo, Daniel Testa, Sophia Heller, Larissa Burkholder, and Annabelle Hershey. In 8th grade, Condor Lewis, Amanda Stoltzfus, Aaron Cardam, Caroline Welsh, Chase Embry, and Natalie DiMaggio. Congratulations to the 4th grade students at Fritz Elementary School, Emily Campbell, Niang Lan, and Jania Hara, as they captured 2nd place in the Litter Hawk Youth Award Program for the Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful poster. Congratulations to CV High School senior William Burgess, as he represented Conestoga Valley at the LLMEA County Chorus Festival this year, at performing guitar at the first ever PMEA District Modern Band Festival. Congratulations. Following graduation, William will serve his country in the Navy, and we would like to express our grateful appreciation for his upcoming service. Congratulations to the CV High School students that are honored for their entered artwork at the annual Lancaster County Artist Competition. A photo gallery of all the students' artwork can be found online. Gold, Cree Johnson, Lee Schiffer. Silver, Megan Bitzler, Sophia Koval, Finn McFalls, Sarah Note, Caillou Vang. Honorable mentions, Adriana Bonacci, Lyden Isley, Jess Coney, Richard Lowe, Hannah Martin, McKenna Scott, Melvin Stoltzfus, Julia Strom, and Olivia Tuna. And kudos to the Conestoga Valley School District for being recognized by the National Association of Music Merchants as a Best Community for Music Education, a designation for the NAMM Foundation for outstanding commitment to music education that the district demonstrates in providing its efforts to provide music access and education to all students. And congratulations to Dr. Andy Graybill, principal at Brownstown Elementary, as he was honored as Boss of the Year at the annual Lancaster-Lebanon Association of Education Offered Professionals Recognition Dinner for his servant leadership and encouraging teamwork in the best interests of Brownstown students. I am always impressed with that wonderful list of accomplishments. Superintendent comments, Dr. Zig.
Thank you, Madam President. You'll notice a couple of changes on the superintendent's report from the one that was posted on Friday. First, we have temporarily removed the pupil services transfers and are moving them to next month's agenda. This will give Sarah Schaefer time to meet with Dr. Martin to explain the pupil services staffing as we head into our new school year. Similar to our board representation on the construction team and the administrator hiring observer, having Dr. Martin as our board member liaison will help facilitate understanding of the pupil services program. Secondly, we removed our recommended candidate for the high school family and consumer sciences position. She notified us today that she would not be accepting the offer. On the other side of the coin, we have added another potential substitute in Madison Tintera through the Act 86 process. And we are also very excited to introduce our newest recommended teacher and business office candidates. With Carrie Snavely's retirement at the end of the year, we are very fortunate to recommend a current CV student teacher, Ms. Catherine Watson, to fill that vacancy. Catherine has spent the last year working with Mrs. Tara Flick in the science department, honing her teaching skills. She'll be earning her Bachelor of Secondary Education in Biology with a minor in Chemistry, earning an impressive 3.92 GPA. While at CV, she has improved and designed curriculum for an elective course in biotechnology. A couple of interesting facts. Catherine had an early aspiration of being an art teacher because she really liked her high school art teacher. That's my wife. I just had to put that in there, but Catherine did take a couple classes with her. And I just found out after the interview that even though she grew up in York County, she does have a CV connection, as Dr. Kelly Cartwright, our former assistant superintendent for elementary education, is her aunt.
Oh, my.
I did not know that. So we would like to welcome Catherine Watson. Catherine, would like to stand up and say hi to the board, please?
Welcome.
I found out exactly 1 year ago today that I was going to be student teaching at CV. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have done that and also to be continuing to teach here, hopefully in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we currently have a vacancy in our payroll department. Mr. Tom Hopta has been selected as our recommended candidate to fill the new payroll specialist position. We're moving the position in zones due to the responsibilities and qualifications needed for the position. Tom is a graduate of Millersville University, earning a BS in Business Administration and Finance. And he comes to us with a wealth of business experience, serving with Hershey Financial Advisors, Welsh Mountain Home, and Sharp Innovations. While at Sharp, Tom was selected to receive one of 40 Under 40 awards by the Central Penn Business Journal. Congratulations, Tom, and welcome. And if you'd like to stand up and introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Appreciate you welcoming me. I look forward to serving the CV community. And I don't think you mentioned, but my wife also works here, Libby Hoppus. She's an ESL teacher over at Smoketown Elementary. So we have close ties, and our kids attend CV. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Just cut your commute a little bit shorter, didn't you?
It is shorter, yes.
I'm going to keep the good news coming with a sneak peek of how awesome our students, faculty, and staff have been performing during this pandemic. And let me get these up real quick. The student Pvas scores I'm about to show measure the academic growth of our students over a 1-year period from 2020 to 2021. If anybody remembers that year, we stayed open. 80% of our students came to school face-to-face. It was not easy. Our teachers worked harder than they ever worked, but it's paid off. Blue and green is very good. So Dr. Mann and Dr. Kozer are going to take this apart and re-present it next month. I just wanted to give you that when you go to the movie theater, upcoming previews, this is one you want to come back for. So next month, both Jill and Dawn will take a nice deep dive into this data. But again, congratulations to our teachers, to our students, and to our faculty staff. Great job
And our
that
leadership,
year.
I have to add that.
Thank
I think we had steady hand at all levels of leadership that made a great bit of difference. And we were not without realizing that they were stretched and not sustainable, but they made it through. I am always bragging, all of my friends around the state, when they talk about their schools, that we were open. And this is just gonna add to that. Thank you,
That's all for tonight, Madam President.
thank you. Secretary, have any correspondence for us?
Nothing this
Nobody writes to us. Are there any board comments on district activities or your activities as board members? I want to get something out of you folks. Oh, you do?
Yes, so I didn't get to talk about my small tour at Fritz.
Okay.
Very good, highly recommended. And the virtual academy.
Yeah.
That is exciting, that's gonna become big. I can see that's gonna become big and very helpful to the students and the families in the district. Also, last week, I got to personally one-on-one meet with the CV Tech student. And I will be continuing those visits. And please know that our CV Tech students are available to anybody in the district to help with everything from personal computer down to cell phone, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were just delightful.
Yeah, I know, I rely on that department very heavily. And the fact that we have students that are, I mean, it's sort of embarrassing, but it is what it is, that we have students that are that good in their tech.
And they're personable, courteous, and
Yes.
very interested in you and what you need.
Well, we'll have to let their parents know that
Mhm.
they're like that. For those who don't know what she was referring to, our board members take visits to our local, to our buildings. It's a chance for us to connect with teachers and a chance for us to see some of the programs that we're asked to fund and see how they work. And that makes a huge difference. And I've been told by others that some of our teachers brag that in their district, board members show up. And that's something that we're very proud of. Are there any others who would like to add anything? If not, we'll move on to the high school student report. Mr. Eby, are you going to introduce our folks?
Yeah, so.
Thank you. She's a high school assistant principal, by the way.
Good evening. Happy to introduce part of our esports team today. First, we have Dr. Susan Scales. She's a business teacher at the high school. She's the manager of the team. We have Mr. Chad Wenry, who is a coach. He works in our IT department. And we have some team members we were able to bring along, and they're gonna tell you all about what they're doing with esports.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for having us and inviting us today. Shall we come up here? Where would you like us? Is this
Wherever you can squeeze yourself in. We will move around to give you a little extra room if you need it.
Is this okay?
We will fix this in our new boardroom, I promise.
Is there a clicker for us? Or just tell you?
Yep, just,
If you want to get started, you can do that. But I'd like to thank the board for inviting us to come. We heard that you were talking about esports, and to tell you a little bit about our club, CBG. We brought a couple of students. We had several that were planning to come, but they're playing this evening. So they thought they might be finished early, but they're still in competition, so they're still there. So yay us, and we'll find out how they're doing when we get back. To start us off, we're planning to talk to you about esports past, present, and future. So I'll do the past, Chad and Adam will do the present, and Olivia will to the future. But to introduce our students, I will ask them to tell them their name and what year they are and how long they've been in esports.
So my name is Adam Zook. I'm a senior this year, and I played for 4 years. I was one of the first founding members under Mr. Wenry and Dr. Fox when he was still here.
I'm Olivia Johnson. I just came here this year and I'm a sophomore and I've been in esports since the beginning of this year.
So esports started with tech team, as you heard earlier, that we have a tech team program for many years, maybe 10 more. And they unofficially did some gaming and always would talk to Chad. Chad Winry and I work on tech team together. I'm the manager and he's the coach on staff. So the kids always talk to us about gaming and I always send them to Chad. And we unofficially talk to the staff, the administration about doing something. At that point, Dr. Fox had gotten some information about esports, and once he passed it along to us, it just erupted. So that was 2018, and then we all got together and I helped to write a grant. And I was very thrilled that Adam could be here because he is one of the founding members. We've had several that were planning to come tonight, and you'll see pictures of them. So if you could click. We've also been so thrilled that we've had a lot of donors to help us get to where we're going, where we are now. LVC, which is Lebanon Valley College, Emerald Society, and others helped to allocate funds. In the beginning, when we heard that we were given this opportunity, we asked the students to see if they were interested, come on down, and we'll see whether this is something that may be interesting to a few folks, and Dr. Fox said.
Dr. Fox came down and said, Chad, can we get 5 kids to try esports? And I said, I think we can get 5. We had our first meeting, we had 90 kids show up. So the want is there, the need is there. And when we were new to it, we're trying to decide how to put teams together. We basically had to put them, they have like gamer tags, so we don't know their actual names, they have like call signs, or whatever you wanna call them. And we split them up that way. And when we did that, the kids that were there had no idea who we were playing with. You know, we weren't looking at demographics at all or anything. It was just gamer tag, game we played. And the kids that got put together, most likely some of the first teams will probably know where to talk to each other at school because they're different ethnic backgrounds, they didn't know each other.
Shy.
They were shy. And we're like, okay guys, we gotta figure out how we're gonna play this, play the game and team-wise, everything else. So I mean, and not knowing anybody, and the first year was interesting.
But then they became a family, and we had a banquet. We didn't realize what we started until that banquet. And we had a podium and invited the kids to say a few words if they wanted to. Now, these are kids that rarely stand up and speak. And there were so many, I think every one of them stood up and said something exciting about the team. So it was a family. At the start of our organization, we had help, as I mentioned, from different organizations, but mostly we had this wonderful grant from CBEF that helped us. And it got us to a point where we could buy 12 laptops and different equipment.
So the students were then asked, what equipment would you like? Because it's all about feeling comfortable and being able to input what you want to on the computer when you need to. So we asked the students, hey, what peripherals would you like? So you can see in the picture there, each station has a headset, so headphones and microphone. There's a mouse, we have a pad down, and we have a keyboard. And then there's also a stand for the laptops themselves.
One of the interesting things that he's not gonna say, but I'm not a gamer, so I think it's really cool when the lights are down, the keyboard lights up and it's on different colors, so I like that.
So with the help of the different organizations and with their help especially, the students have been able to get really interesting opportunities. So Henry Romero, he's a CV alumni, and he was the first CDG member to receive a scholarship, and he's at LVC for it. Then there was Kyle Morgan, who was my old captain, and he received a full scholarship to Harrisburg University. And then I myself am receiving a substantial scholarship to Siena Heights University in Adrian, Michigan. And Zach Slezak, he couldn't make it tonight. He was also offered but declined.
So I am a proud teacher here, so can we applaud?
Okay, so overall overall season placements. In the past, we've always played Overwatch, which is I know the idea of a first-person shooter may sound bad, but it's very cartoony. You have hamsters running around, you have a person throwing magic and stuff, so it's not your typical thought process when you're thinking of some kind of like action shooter. So we played that for the last 3 years. This year, the PIEA, which is Pennsylvania Esports Association, they decided to change the games up a little bit this year, so we had to play Valorant, which is another game like that. We have Rocket League going on right now. We've actually won three Pennsylvania state titles, and they placed 2 national titles. Last night, our Rocket League team actually played again on a national spotlight, and fortunately they lost. They went in that match 5th place. So they might have lost, but as far as I'm concerned, they got 5th in the nation. Think about that. So League of Legends, we did not play this year. We've had teams in the past that actually made playoffs, but none of the leagues that we're associated with were playing that this year. And Hearthstone, which is like a card game, that was Adam's main game. Still is your main game, I believe. We've been happy with the placements we've had with our kids. Unfortunately, because of the situation with the leagues and stuff, they don't give trophies or anything else, so it's kind of word of mouth. But we know we have them, we know we did it, and it's all that matters. Dr. Z, I think you were at a couple Overwatch matches a couple years ago. We were in the auditorium.
In the auditorium, it took me about a half hour to figure out what was going on.
Yep.
But then once I started, I'm like, watch out for, I'm like yelling, watch out for the other guy.
Once you're there for a couple minutes, you start to realize what's going on.
And you had an MC, which helped out tremendously for the people like me that were in the audience.
Yeah, my parents actually came to one of the matches, and one of the kids actually came out and explained what's going on. So, 70-year-old parents are watching it, and the kids are out there saying, what's going to happen? Is this going to happen? My mom's just like, My dad enjoyed it. Unfortunately, with the pandemic that happened and everything else, we did not play in the auditorium last year or this year. Our goals next year is if we get into playoffs and stuff, we're going back to the auditorium and get people to see us.
So we have 2 current, our current season, we have 1 Valorant team and 2 Rocket League teams. Our Valorant team got 7th this season, and this is a completely brand new game for us. This was our first time running it, we just wanted to test the waters, and we got 7th. For our varsity Rocket League team, they did place 5th in the nation, as we stated. And last year, our Rocket League team placed 3rd, winning $700. So this is our Overwatch team. I am in there, and so are a bunch of other people who couldn't make it tonight.
But dedicated players.
Yeah, we would tend to practice 2 to 3 times a week, at least, with COVID, it was easier just to play from home, which is one of the advantages of esports is we can, although it is preferred to, be in the same room to have that team spirit and the camaraderie.
Another photo, Rocket League. You can go to the next. We visited LBC as a field trip, and our students really enjoyed it. We took some students from the middle school as well, and the LBC players took us under their wing and let us sit and play, and we were amazed at all the things that they had in their room, their arena, and things that they were about to do, and they're coming to see us tomorrow, actually, during our flex period. The LBC student and Christine Cassay's son, Cade, and the coach, David Shapiro, will be coming. So that's pretty exciting. And we had a middle school visit that not only did the students go with us on a field trip, but a different time. We had just a handful of students come and play some games. Tomorrow, the middle school is invited to come and hear the recruiter from LBC, and Christine has signed up 20 students, so I'm excited for the enthusiasm. here are our seniors and our resident winner here for the scholarship. Adam is there.
So our Valorant team, as stated before, is completely new to us. Some of us know the game, some of us haven't. And so I thought that it would be a really cool idea to start one before it even happened. So I kind of brought the idea up to Dr. Scales, and I thought, since I had played this game before and I really liked it, I thought maybe it could be a really good opportunity for the team to make a quick little change. Like I had seen on Mannheim Township's website that they do like stuff like Minecraft and like, oh, also Overwatch, but also Valorant. And I got a little jealous, not gonna lie. So I decided to talk to Dr. Scales, and it kind of blossomed from there, although there was a bunch of other input from the other team members. And so that's where we are right now, and we are doing pretty well for it being a new game.
There's many of us, not all of us, but many of us.
This is our current arena, which is a class at the, used to be the library classroom, and now it's the RTII. So what happens is usually about 3 o'clock, we start running in there. As soon as we're allowed from the teachers out there, bring laptops over, start setting everything up. The kids can and this is another thing for esports with technology, the kids can basically set up the network for all 12 machines if needed in about 15 minutes. And it's all mobile. So it comes out of the closet, gets set up, and we get lined up. Hasn't been that way this year much because of the league allows us to play different times. So a lot of times these guys are working. They play at 9 o'clock at night sometimes. So it depends on the schedule or from both teams. And so it hasn't been used that much this year. But we're looking to get back next year. And I think my rule is going to be we're playing from school because that's the way the kids like it. So unless the game's at 9 o'clock, and then you guys can play from home. I'm not staying here all night.
So esports is growing. It's one of the fastest growing high school and collegiate sports in the nation. And there's the visual growth. In 2018, it was 395 million total for how much revenue it's bringing in. But it's projected in 2023 to be 646 million. And these aren't small numbers. And our school has aligned with Esports Revolution, and where kids in our generation can play and become esports athletes, and reach large amounts of viewerships and possibly win prize money.
And as you can see, the folks here can see it closer, but at $30 million, if somebody would ever get a scholarship and then, go on from there and achieve higher heights, there's some big prize money. So this is an up-and-coming, a solid up-and-coming program. And we are lucky to be aligned with it and moving forward with it. And one of the first.
Yeah, we were one of the first in Lancaster County. There was 3 of us. There was Lacademia Academy in Lancaster, Lancaster Catholic, and us. So we got together. Dr. Fox found us at some principal meeting or whatever. He found these guys. We're talking to them. We met after school the one time. We're talking about what we could do. Weren't sure what to do, and then we found some leagues and went from there. Every school in the county basically came through here to see how we were doing our program. Now there's 23 schools in Lancaster and Lebanon counties areas. But every high school has one, which is nice because the goal eventually is hopefully become an actual sport, so we can go and compete at their locations. Right now it's kind of hard as a club, but the goal was to be able to play at their school or have visiting teams come and play against each other.
So we have so much potential in esports that since it's been growing for a long time now, and technology is always developing, it's always improving, and there's a lot of younger generations that are going to understand technology even better than even I. So we are really looking for it to be a recognized sport, not just a club, because students could really benefit. Let's say you're not very active physically, or maybe you're disabled, you can't walk or run. So this is a really good opportunity for people who don't usually get included with extracurriculars to get involved with things. And I think that it is just so good for like growth of personality, but also it can teach valuable lessons. And it overall demonstrates a lot of personality traits that could be useful in the growing economy and world. We really want to introduce the ability to earn varsity letters. So I think that overall it just has a lot of potential to it and it can be carried on throughout the future.
If you'd like to join us, you can see where we can be found on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, or contact either of us via email if you would like to learn more or come and see us play.
If you could just email me like your
Yep.
schedule, I'll make sure the board gets it.
Okay.
And one thing I would just like to quickly add, esports really has given an opportunity for a lot of students to find a way to interact with the school. I have juvenile arthritis, so playing sports like football or basketball is hard for me. My body will not allow me to, but esports has allowed me and has gotten me excited about going to college and being able to go out there and be an athlete.
I think what you just said is probably what I like most about these things. Any extracurriculars that bring more kids in and give them a chance to understand what team and cooperation mean, I'm always amazed with. Do I understand that you're on our retirement list?
Not yet, but soon.
Soon. The reason I thought I heard them mention you're retiring, I wanted to mention that I consider myself what I call a techno idiot. And from the time I came on the board just a couple years ago, it is Mrs. Scales who brought me through an appreciation of what the tech department was doing when technology meant something different than it does now, and the programs they had and the certifications that we had. And I think you're all very lucky to have someone like that who is just forward-thinking. And I think all of our tech teachers have been very forward-thinking to help our young people make the most of these skills besides sitting home alone doing these things, to make it something worthwhile. I am immensely impressed with all of your work.
Thank you.
Any questions for these young people?
Congrats on the scholarship.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I personally think this is something we need to watch. This avenue is growing 30% a year easily, globally. Some gamers can make 7 figures easily. And now I think we're gonna start seeing more scholarships in this space than we get from traditional sports individuals from that perspective. So I think we could put it, at least look at it on a track of identifying it as a traditional sport rather than a club with all those other benefits, especially with the kind of money that this is bringing in. It's something to at least consider.
If I remember correctly, you're one of the few clubs that actually has bylaws, am I correct?
We do have bylaws.
Yeah, I seem to remember our approving bylaws and was very impressed that the club was so well organized from its different locations, that they wanted to make sure at the front end that everything was being done uniformly, and that's really impressive.
Yeah, we
And
copy the athlete bylaw, like the other teams exactly. These guys have eligibility. I look at grades, and if their grades aren't up, guess what, you're benched. And with a team that's five players and 2 alternates, losing one person isn't good. So the guys know, hey, I think the first year we were together, we had one student that was kind of like falling behind, and you had team members start tutoring him to kind of make sure he didn't drop behind. So the guys look out for each other.
That's the sort of experience that
That's what we push.
these particular young people would never. And I would also assume that for many of them, although this is a club, unlike a lot of other clubs in sports, these do lead to careers.
Yes.
I can't imagine anyone this far into it not wanting to have some area of technology in the future. Congratulations, we're really proud of you all.
Thank you for inviting us.
Is it appropriate to say, I think the students, both of you, very well spoken?
Yes.
Which
Thank you.
speaks so well, because I think some people who think the kids are into technology and on the computer all the time are losing out academically. So thank you. You're both very well spoken.
Yes,
You
definitely.
represented us well. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well done, guys.
I wouldn't wanna have to follow that.
Well, luckily we have the right people to follow.
Dr. Z, would you introduce our
You bet, we have
presenters?
Katie Rife, who was homeschool visitor, social worker when I first started. And then we were fortunate enough to add Carla DiClemente as well. Katie primarily takes care of the elementary, Carla takes care of the secondary, and as a bilingual speaker, also our Spanish-speaking population. And we are very, very fortunate to have these two ladies taking care of our kids.
Well, we feel fortunate to be a team taking care of the kids together, and we really do appreciate the opportunity to come share with you a little bit about our job and what our role looks like for the district, and some statistics that we have been tracking for the purposes of always being able to provide data whenever we were asked. So just in addition to his introduction, I am actually a CV alumni of 2003. I am also a CV resident, and my daughter is in kindergarten at Brownstown. So I've come pretty full circle from being at Brownstown in kindergarten, and my daughter's teacher was both of my brothers' kindergarten teacher. So it's kind of cool to see it full circle.
I hope you don't mention that to them too often.
The teacher does. She actually is more into that than anybody I've ever known. So it's pretty neat. She actually likes taking in some of her students that she's had the parents for. So it's a pride thing for her. So, and then Carla has been.
I just love being part of the CV community. Adopted in here. So.
Yep. So this is Carla's 4th year, and it's my 8th year. So we have a little promo video since we're new to most of you. So Dr. Z, if you wouldn't mind, next slide. This is a video that we created during COVID, but we've shared it out to many of our families every year, just as a reintroduction of who we are. So
What we do, how we can help our families and our community.
Yep.
It's coming.
So it just acts as a sort of reminder to our families that we're here literally to help break down any barrier that their kids have to education. So whether it is the financial resources, and we'll talk a little bit about what referrals we have in the next few slides. So next slide, please. So just a few highlights. Oh, this is gonna get tricky. Okay. So 300 parents receive information via text message in English and Spanish. So Carla and I are connected on an app called Remind, and we have over 300 families that we are able to text at any moment's notice. So we will send out resources. For instance, tonight Milton Hershey is having a resource night at Lafayette Fire Hall. We just share it out, not as a, hey, we recommend this, just as here, if you're interested, here you go. We'll do that with anything that CVCCS might be. They have a upcoming seminar, so we send that out to families on our text messages all at one time, getting them the information on resources available in our community at one shot. And then Carla, fortunately for many of our Spanish families, she's able to translate those messages so that our Spanish speaking families also have the access to the information.
So Katie talked a little bit about our financial assistance that we also provide for our families. And we, as you know, are very blessed to be in a community where our businesses care about our students as well and donate either gift cards or funds, things like that. And of course, we have our CV Ministerium that also helps us to support our families. So because of those elements, then we're able to provide financial assistance in some ways, or one way would be in gift cards. And that could be to Giant, to
Gas
cards, things
Uber.
like that. Whatever, again, breaks down that barrier for families. And so up until this point, we have been able to provide $2,275 in different ways to them.
And that's just gift cards. That's not the actual financial assistance of referring our families to the ministerium for rental assistance, utility assistance. This is just
PPNL.
gift cards. Like, hey, you're in our office, here you go. So. We are partnering with Community Services Grant, or Community Services Group for a grant focused primarily with working with our homeless population. We actually have a slide later on that, but it's another highlight that we're excited about for this year. 538 children in 230 families received holiday support by 79 donors. Our holiday program is unlike any other in the county. We have other school districts coming to us saying, how do you do it? Well, we have this challenge. How do you do it? So all 538 of those kids had non-duplicated support by one of three programs. We had the Shop with a Buck program with the National Honor Society. Then Sheets, they give us an extra, each Sheets gets 16 students allotted. Well, there's one particular school district that can't figure out how to partner with them. So Sheets is like, can you just take this? Sure, we'll take an extra 16 kids. So we have 4 sheets actually allocated to Conestoga Valley, which is the highest of any district, because we have gotten into a routine of figuring out how to complete all of their paperwork for them. And then the remaining families get $50 gift cards per child. So all those 79 donors let us know how many gift cards they want to donate in $50 increments to either Target or Walmart, and then we pair them up. And then families come through, they get stocking stuffers, which is an all district-wide drive. And then we give them stocking stuffers and then enough gift cards for every child. Oh yes, and wrapping paper. They get wrapping paper, tape, labels. So it's kind of like a Christmas bag in a drive-through. So it's been a really cool program that we're happy to do.
And of course, another highlight is the exciting move to add to our social work department of 2. So the approval of having a 3rd social worker. So we're definitely grateful for that and the help. So our referral data is here just from last year and this year. So some of the numbers that we'll highlight, we talked a little bit about the financial assistance again. These are referrals that we would receive from our families directly, from principals letting us know that there's a need, school counselor. We get referrals in many different ways. But so once we talk to the families and we figure out what's going on, this is where we kind of break it down by category. So the financial assistance is, like I said, one that we'll highlight. So we've received 42 referrals for that piece. And again, that could be like a gift card or partial rent assistance, utilities, things like that. Home visits, Katie and I have done 100 home visits were attempted so far this year. That means we went to the house, nobody was there, so we were leaving a door hanger. And then 229 visits were successful. Katie does a lot of home visits when we are preparing to, enroll kindergartners. So through the census, she gets those addresses and does a gentle reminder to enroll kids for kindergarten. So if you'll notice there, the numbers from this year compared to last year, we had 453. That's because only half of the kindergarten home visits have been completed up to date, so that number will go. Yes. And the other piece is that, of course, we did have a lot of kids doing RTV last year, or needing to do RTV, or being home for a certain amount of times, and so we would also run out to the houses to either give them hotspots or, schoolwork or stuff for their projects. So we were doing a lot of home visits last year as well. So another piece there to highlight is the medical, and that would include our vouchers to Modernize. We have a great partnership with them, and really appreciative of our staff that do utilize Modernize, so that we can then pay it forward to our families and provide either an exam or lenses, or both, to our kids then. So that includes that, and then medical assistance applications, we assist families with that.
We've definitely seen an increase in needs for behavioral and mental health services, which have lent the greater need to apply for medical assistance. So a lot of the services that we'd be recommending for students require medical assistance. I always tell families, they're like, well, I have private insurance. Well, you can make $18 million a year, have the best private insurance, but the state of Pennsylvania still requires medical assistance to access certain levels of support. So we have definitely seen the need for that this year.
Compared to last year, where we were at like 16, so. The other things, categories that we record are our meetings with parents and students, and especially at the secondary level, that's where I'm doing a lot of the meetings with the kids, like checking in with them again, that mental health piece, the social emotional piece, things like that, checking in with the kids, and having parents also coming in for meetings. So that number has definitely increased from previous years. And of course, then our Spanish referrals have also increased. The more that I'm here, word gets out, and I get random calls and families coming in, or calling the district office for somebody. But luckily, we do have great additions to our team that do speak Spanish too, so that's very helpful. So I don't have to do the enrollment pieces, which do take a while, and then have that time to also just focus on our kids on that piece. Let's see.
So we've worked with approximately 400 families in all of this. We try to keep our data really, really closely. We have a shared document where we keep it very well organized. So according to our estimates, we've touched at least around 400 families.
So again, we do our best to record. We know that this year we're probably missing some numbers, because it has been, and I'm sure you've heard this from other individuals coming in a year like no other, it's nonstop, and so we try to record our data the best that we can, but it has definitely been a high demand year. Fast moving. So some of the extra things that we're doing also to support our kids, Greek groups at our elementary levels. We're both part of our SAP teams at the secondary and primary levels. This year with the high school, I was supporting our ES classroom as well. And I think that's one of the important pieces.
So let's take a look at the homeless numbers. So we have the current up-to-date numbers for you. High school is gonna always be the highest. Smoketown is historically the highest elementary because of the location to Route 30. Conestoga Valley has the most hotels per any school district, so anytime a family moves in and they are identified as homeless, they're given the opportunity by their other school district to either come to us or stay with their school district of origin. Depending on what school they're coming from, school district they're coming from, we do get a lot of requests to transfer. So Smoketown's getting the bulk of those hotels. So we're currently at 131, with 116 of those being students, and 15 of them are non-attending siblings. So you can see our numbers up from last year. Last year was a lull because we didn't know where these kids were. Kids were getting evicted, we didn't know, because we weren't in school. And the moratorium, that's right, and the moratorium when eviction was in, so families couldn't get evicted. So currently, if you hit, there will be one more star. Dr. Z, please. So 43 of our 131 have found homes. They became no longer homeless this school year. So on our next, it's important to note that the state data from 1920 school year is the most recent data we have. Conestoga Valley for the second or third year in a row is still the second highest school district for homeless numbers in our county, next to School District of Lancaster. So our 131, I believe they're in the 900 range, and they have 3 staff, well, 2 full-time staff and an intern that function in the capacity we are with only their homeless. So just a comparison, they have around 900, and then we're the next highest with around 130. So why are our students homeless? Here's a brief graph. Eviction, so this school year, obviously that moratorium ran out, so we're seeing an increase of evictions. A lot of landlords are taking advantage of this high market and selling off their rentals, so that lent us to have a lot of evictions. The other category is really high. A lot of our families are very transient, and it's hard to identify the actual root of what caused their homelessness when you bounce around. So our other category is high, but it could be they came in from another country, something that doesn't meet the state's definitions of homelessness. So these are the defined reasons, precipitating events for homelessness. So if it doesn't fit in those categories, then it becomes other. So we talked briefly about the intensive case management grant that we have with CSG. So it's a grant funded through Lanco My Home, and then Community Services Group holds the position salary and the benefits, and then our particular staff is shared between Conestoga Valley and Donegal.
Yep, so we have Marcia Anderson that's been with us since about January or so, helping our students, and so she's with our district twice a week. So we started, kind of scheduling her at different buildings. So Mondays she's at the elementary schools, and then Thursdays she's at the high school, and sometimes middle school as well. So she does our check-ins with the students, things that Katie and I,
wish we had more time to do.
Yeah, try to prioritize as well, but, sometimes just can't meet with the students, for whatever reason, so it's nice to have her as a backup and to also check in if anything has changed, if the kids need anything, how are their grades, anything that's going on that we can support them with, so it's really been nice to have her here.
So the other homeless support initiatives we had a local church reach out actually about a year and a half ago and asked, how can we help? And we said, do gift cards, because we do like having them on hand. And what they took it a step further, and they wanted specifically their gift cards to go to our homeless families. So when a new family is identified, we already have a stash of gift cards that we give to the families to be able to just say, we're sorry you're in this situation, here's a little something to help. The new this year is quarterly check-ins at the elementary level. In previous years, it would just be kind of whenever they needed something, they'd contact us. But this year I wanted to be really intentional about checking in, so we're doing it quarterly. Quarter 1, I provided STEM kits and a little check-in slip survey. Quarter 2 was an additional holiday basket with donated gift cards for like fun things, movie theaters, Sky Zone, things that they wouldn't necessarily have financial resources to provide their kids. Quarter 3, I did Valentine's and the check-in, and then quarter 4, we're planning on a summer fun basket of some kind.
Yep, so the secondary level, of course, looks a little bit different. So that's, again, meeting with our students face-to-face and reviewing grades, attendance, seeing if there's anything going on, ways that we can, advocate for the kids there, if any changes are necessary, and also looking at like next school year and trying to do something after school as well with the kids, either through like the learning lab kind of time frame. So lots of growth that can happen there. So that's where it's exciting to have a third team member to be able to plan those kinds of things.
Any questions?
Is there, are there, like you had mentioned that this year there's just so much more trauma and everything that kids are kind of coming and dealing with. Are there, if you had to put things in a top 3 that you hear the most, And maybe start with primary. Like, what are you hearing about? Like, I'm not sure how to frame that question, but there has to be some sort of a pattern, and what are the top things that you're seeing that the kids are coming in with?
I'll definitely, at a county-wide level, service providers are not staffed. So that's causing a huge backlog. And the old term is a TSS, therapeutic support staff. So it's a behavioral support that is for a one-on-one. They're now called BHTs, behavioral health technicians. The wait list for one of those used to be like 3 to 4 weeks. It's now a year-long wait list. So we have TW Conestoga partnership for outpatient counseling. Those positions are left unfilled. That's not anything on CV. This countywide problem is not anything we can collectively control. So I would say number one, in my book, number one is the countywide resources aren't available. So we're kind of left trying to fill those gaps, but it's not our fault that the gaps are there.
Right.
And there's nothing really that we can do to solve that problem, unfortunately. But that it's called intensive behavioral health services, that whole process that you need medical assistance to access, they're on a year-long wait list for staffing. So that's a huge undertaking for a school district to have to manage some of those behaviors when the services used to be available and available quickly, and that was an additional support for that child. That's not the case anymore. Can you think of anything else?
I mean, just school avoidance, the root of that, can be different things, but we're seeing some of the anxiety at the secondary level, depression, and again, where that is actually coming from, it's hard to determine. There's just a lot of, families going through tough times and losing family members, a lot of grief. We've worked with, parents that have passed away, or, with family members that have passed, or, with COVID, what they've experienced, different things, hardships through that. So, I think a lot of those pieces have affected our kids.
So that was the negative question. The positive would be, tell me something a rewarding experience you've had recently, just to counter. I don't want that to be the last question that I ask you personally, if that's okay.
Oh, man.
Or just a small win that you've had with a student or family, or like you said, 400, families touched. So there has to be some cool wins from that.
I will say the one win I had this year was this parent came to a kindergarten screening at Brownstown, and there's a group of parents just kind of small talking, and she's just laying her stuff out there it's just stuff I probably wouldn't have shared, she was sharing. She's like, well, Katie, you're the only reason I stay here. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I wouldn't have anybody help our family the way you did. So just having her just put her business out there, and then say how supported she felt it publicly was very kind of her to do. Wouldn't have been necessary, but
yeah.
I will add to that support. I know there are people that criticize the schools getting involved in social services, but there's a variation of a very old adage that you're judged by how you treat the least of your neighbors. And anything least about these kids is their inability to handle what they face in their lives. And by being able to stabilize their families and give these children a better support makes them better students and more successful. So it's sort of a selfish aspect of this, but so many academic problems have nothing to do with academics. And it just means a lot to know that at CV we do everything we can to let every child come in with the same advantages. And we appreciate your work. Because I'm selfish, because it's also my daughter's work, but I know how special it is, and I know how frustrating it can be.
it can be at times. But
Yeah, I think it's those just small victories when you're seeing, kids that were sporadically coming in, and with the ES classroom that we were going up there and checking in, that's usually my rounds. I go up to the second floor where they are, and then there's one particular student at least that has missed 30, 40 days. And while we were up there, I started making my rounds, she was there every single day. So it's those kind of victories of, increased attendance, or, coming down, try to have food, and of course, food always connects you to kids. So, having the regulars coming in, Miss, do you have some snacks? Yes. And then they like talk about like, so this happened. All right, let's talk about it. Like those connections. So seeing the kids showing up every day, and then seeking you out, like, I'm here, like they know that they're noticed, and that makes a difference. And the same with like Benchmark. I know we were talking about like esports. I also stay after with Benchmark, and I think they presented already here. So the same thing, the kids that just were not feeling connected, not feeling part of a community, or like had anything to like really bring them in, you're seeing them coming in every Tuesday, every Thursday, like ready to work, ready to push themselves. And then at the end of each like weight training session, like, they all get to say like a positive or somebody that they think took a leadership role. And it's nice to like have the kids notice each other there and, pushing each other and seeing the positive. So that's what makes it worth it.
Well, thank you both.
Sure.
Now at the part of the agenda where there'll be public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board on any of our items right now? Yes, would you please come forward?
Hi, Kelly Miller, 1833 Windrow Drive. First, I just wanted to say thanks to you guys for, I know this is late, approving the junior high girls volleyball as a sanctioned sport. My daughter was, I think it was 2014, able to play, I guess it was club for Dewey Barlow. And then when she graduated in 2020, but her 2019 season, they made districts and leagues. So I feel like that's huge for CV, so thank you. On a more serious note, this is about Policy 903. Supreme Court case decision, Graham versus Connor, stated, it's not reasonable for public servants such as yourselves to know all the laws. However, citizens such as myself are required to know the laws so that we can correct you or inform you when you misstate, misinterpret, or mischaracterize the law. What I just did today to be able to speak, was relinquish my Fourth Amendment right to be secure in my person, to be able to exercise my First Amendment right to free speech. These are just two of the many unlawful violations in your revised and original 903 policy. Enforcing unlawful policies falls outside of your sworn oath to the U.S. Constitution and the PA Constitution that I was able to witness some of you take. So I ask, what does swearing an oath mean to you if you do not uphold it? Mr. Frankhauser, CV solicitor, unfortunately is not a civil rights attorney. I ask that you seek counsel from a civil rights attorney on how to amend this unlawful policy. In the meantime, you could flex your freedom muscle and read up on these court cases that allow U.S. citizens to stand in our rights. Marbury v. Madison, Murdoch v. Pennsylvania, Graham v. Connor, or more recently, the Pennsylvania court case, Marshall v. Amuso, regarding Pennsbury School District. You could also read some of the U.S. codes, 18 U.S.C. 241, 18 U.S.C. 242, and 42 U.S.C. 1986. I cannot make you read these or want to learn how to be free, but I'm asking you to do so that you can uphold the rights of the citizens and the students of Conestoga Valley. Thank you.
I don't usually, but I will respond in part to this.
Okay.
Thank you, because I don't get it.
When 903 was brought to us for revision, I asked it to be pulled off the agenda.
Okay.
Specifically because I knew it wasn't addressing the changes in those judicial rulings on identification of speakers. I assume that's what you're referring to, at least in part?
Yes.
Yeah. We are currently, and not just CV, but even those who are civil rights lawyers, are currently reviewing how to adjust to those judicial rulings. That's why we pulled it off. I have in my packet one article that I keep with me that I know has to be used to change that policy.
Okay.
And even our state organization does not have all the information they need yet. But we are in the process of adjusting that policy to align with current judicial rulings for privacy of people who wish to speak to us.
Great, thank you.
If you
I
have
appreciate
any
that.
other specific issues in that policy, we'd be glad if you would share those with us, by
Okay.
email, so that we don't end up changing it and then missing something you were concerned about.
Okay, great, I appreciate that.
And you can
You're
email
welcome.
me directly with that. Email's on the website.
Okay, thanks.
I'll make sure the board gets it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's nice to be criticized for something we're already up on. Any other public comments? Any comments from CVEA? Or other employee groups? Our next issue is our consent agenda, and before I ask for a motion, there were some changes I thought I wanted to address. Dr. Z has already addressed the changes in his. I also wanted to bring your attention to policy 905 that we did approve in a first reading. I did have some changes made in that. I don't know if you noticed it. I had the as needed committees changed to be called ad hoc, and I required that we approve a chairman for all the committees that we formed, which was left out of it. I'd also like to bring your attention to the IU Legal Consortium with office boards, direct consultation with special ed lawyers as part of their contract with them, which is one of the good things about being involved in our specific IU. I also wanted to address the fact that we did take off a number of things from the superintendent's report, and he explained what he did, but I don't know if the public cares as much, but it does go to how we run this board meeting. There are 9 people, and there's a reason, and I've often told my fellow board members that every chair is equally important. One of the good reasons about having 9 is we all have a different red button item or expertise. I've told board members that if any of them want anything removed from that consent agenda for more discussion or a separate vote, I will never turn them down. And in this case, we had someone with some expertise who felt that they needed better information and it was to the board's advantage, and I granted them that. If any board members think I shouldn't have, you may say so, and we'll discuss if it should go back on, but I doubt that that's going to happen. That much said, I am looking for a motion to approve consent items A through P.
So moved.
Second.
Take a roll call vote first, please.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We now will go on to the action discussion agenda. The finance update. Will you introduce our
You bet.
presenters, please?
We have Mr. Horstman, I believe, here today, and he will be coming up to talk about the bond resolution used for McNeese, Wallace, and Nurk. They are our bond counsel. If you remember, when we chose our solicitors, when we chose McNeese, Wallace, and Nurk for bond counsel, we have a special ed solicitor and we have a general solicitor. So, Tim, it's up to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. The resolution that we've prepared with input from your solicitor has been circulated to your staff, administration. Just a bit of background here. The board, of course, adopted a resolution several years ago authorizing up to $115 million of general obligation bonds to finance a variety of capital projects. There have been a number of bond issues pursuant to that resolution. There's roughly $32 million of capacity outstanding under that prior resolution. The amount that we anticipate needing and talking with the folks at Raymond James, probably going to be somewhere, I'd say, probably in the 40 in the 40s. So we determined that we're going to need to do a new resolution. So rather than try and work with that old one and do a new one as well, we're just going to wipe out the old one when we file new proceedings and then just proceed into the new one. So this new resolution, it basically captures the 32 million that was under the prior one, and then adds the 28 million of additional that we need, to proceed with these projects. So the new resolution would authorize the issuance of up to $60 million. Now, again, this is what we call a max parameters resolution. So what that means is that you're authorizing at a higher borrowing capacity each year to give you flexibility to sell bonds at a specific number once you go to market. So you're not going to see an actual issuance of 60 million, but gives you flexibility to issue it when the time is right. The projects are not going to change. It's going to be the same capital projects that were referenced in the prior resolution. There's building projects that are ongoing. And beyond that, the resolution is very similar to what you've seen in the past for your bond resolutions. The bonds will be backed by the full faith credit and taxing power of the district. The bonds will be issued tax exempt, so there's a number of tax covenants in the resolution. And if you determine to proceed tonight, it would authorize McNeese to file the necessary proceedings with the Commonwealth to seek state approval for the issuance, for the incurrence of debt, and then proceed to close when the time is right. If there are any questions about the resolution, I'm happy to answer those.
I'm waiting for Mr. Talley.
No. No questions?
I was expecting you to ask if this is going to cover enough for our proposed extra projects.
I was thinking about it, but.
You brought it up every other time. I figure we may as well be upfront with it if that's a concern.
Yeah.
How much above what we have budgeted for our current projects is this amount?
So I believe it's 44.
So this is to finish up the projects that we can fit within the 3-year window that we talked about last week. There's
Nothing
unknown
extra
amount.
assumed here.
What's that?
There's nothing extra assumed in this resolution.
No.
Okay?
Yes, and the project description that we've used is just for those projects, so there's nothing extra here.
So, the whole premise is that with money being so cheap now, is there anything else we want to do from a budget, capital perspective?
So the main problem with that, if you haven't identified projects, if you have projects that you've identified, that's one thing, but if you don't have firm plans in place to do certain projects yet, you run into tax issues. The IRS, doesn't want you to issue bonds too early. The concept there, they refer to them as hedge bonds because you're issuing bonds and hedging against future interest rate increases. The IRS says that's a no-no. You can't do that.
Trying to save money. I get it. I get that. I brought that up not because I'm completely convinced we need to do that, but I knew you were going to be concerned.
About it, but
I'd rather have it on the table and
it's
discuss.
nice to have someone else talk about it, other than me.
Well, I'm in full agreement with you. I want a performing arts center. That's one of the things I feel.
Well, I didn't mention the Performing Arts Center, but
No.
now since you
There you
did, I think that's a great
I mean,
segue.
I'm going after that
Segue to
specifically,
that,
but I know when we were sitting down and talking about
You know what's
the
interesting?
3-year loan, it was just how do we get all this stuff done? And I don't think it was
When you
feasible.
talk with the swim team, they all want a pool. When you talk to the drama department, they all want performing arts. Everybody wants something, et cetera.
Oh, always.
But,
I bring it up mostly because, as I said, not because I'm all that
Yeah.
convinced yet,
Mhm.
but if this is a concern, we need to talk about it
Sure.
sooner rather than later. And I
Correct.
don't want to pretend it doesn't exist under the surface.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just that with capital so cheap now, if you don't do it, you'll never do it.
And basically what we need is some advice at some point,
Yeah.
sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
and how we move forward if there's any chance we're going to do that. So you'll be hearing from us, I
Yes.
guess.
Okay.
Okay?
I do have one quick question.
Sure.
So this resolution is based on our former resolution?
Yeah.
Is it possible to get a red line version?
So that prior version, we didn't prepare that, so this is a different, so it's probably gonna be a little bit different, but,
And this will be the last one, correct? That rolls everything together?
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm sure Mr. Dillman's aware we don't have time right now to sit here and read it.
Yeah, and the version that was in your packets, it's identical to this. The only change that was made in the one that we provided today is to add that expected completion date for the projects of December 31, 2026. Other than that, there have been no changes to this document from the one that was provided, I think it was provided last week.
What's that date again?
December 31, 2026 is the current current best estimate as to when this project will be completed.
All projects in this big.
Yeah, and that's the projects that are gonna be under this borrowing, the one this year, and then, I understand there's a possibility of a second borrowing under this. It's that too.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? There's nothing, does this need approved tonight, or does this
It's a roll
come
call
later?
vote.
Excuse me?
It's a roll call vote.
Okay. I'll take this motion.
I move we approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Go to roll call vote, please.
Mr. Tally?
Aye.
Mr. Dillon?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge? Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mrs. Crawl?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Renovations for existing middle school and Leola Elementary School, bids. We had a report last week.
Yep.
From Mr. Dillman and Mr. Gensel, having been at that part of that committee. If there's any more discussion, that's fine. If not, I'm open to a motion to reject these bids. And if you make the motion, it has to be to reject. You cannot make a motion to say we're not going to accept.
I move that we reject the bids as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Dillon?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Tally?
Aye.
Mrs. Crawl?
Aye. Traffic updates. Would you please introduce our presenter?
You bet. Mr. Mark Karowski from K&W is here, and he'll be talking about the pavement out front here and also the Leola site. So, Mark, it's up to you, sir.
Great, thank you. Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
What you have before you are two small additions to our contracts for the Leola project and the middle school project. To talk briefly about Leola, this is essentially some additional design and permitting work that was required. That project initially started off with kind of very little site improvements. It evolved a bit over time as we went through the design and worked with staff and administration, ultimately resulting in the need to do some additional analysis as required by the township. In simplest terms, they had some concerns about downstream property owners relative to stormwater discharge. So that request solely was to do some additional design work as required by the township engineer. That work has actually been completed so we could stay on task. So a little late coming to the board with this one, but it took a little while to get it together. So that was for Leola. For the middle school, these are predominantly, in fact, entirely related to traffic work for all of the improvements associated with Horseshoe Road, Mount Sidney, and Hartman Station. It's kind of broken into three pieces. There are some modifications required to the existing school zone flashing signal located along Horseshoe Road. There are some additional signal plan revisions to the intersection at Hartman Station, Mount Sidney, and Horseshoe, as well as, oddly, as we don't have a lot of sidewalk in that area, PennDOT still does require handicap ramps. We actually have to modify those existing ramps, even though there's probably not a whole lot of use, but that is the standard and the requirement. And along with that, they're requiring us to do what they call ADT, which is essentially additional traffic counts. And lastly, just on the north side, directly across from the school on Horseshoe Road, there's what they call a low-pressure sewer system. It serves just a few of the houses there. That is actually going to be impacted by some of the PennDOT requirements that have us doing some grading in that area. Fairly nominal in terms of impact to the system, but it was not anything that we contemplated. We thought that sewer system could remain. So there's a little bit of work there for us to coordinate with the East Lampeter Sewer Authority and incorporate that work in our PennDOT HOP process. That's the items. I can also give a little bit of an update if you'd like, just in terms of where we stand with that highway work, or if you're tired of hearing highway things, I will stop talking.
Questions?
No, ma'am.
We need to approve these.
Do you need two separate motions or just need one?
I think we could take it as one line report covering two locations.
I move we accept them as updates as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Tally?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mrs. Croft?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Don't really have a whole lot of choice when PennDOT says this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're just gonna sit there and take it. Buckskin Alliance report, Mrs. Beezer.
I'll introduce, Connie's coming up, she has our president, and Buxton Activities Alliance has a set guidelines and set bylaws. And so when grants are proposed to the committee, they are voted on as needed and as approved. The reason that Connie's coming here is because we hold the money. So it's kind of like their money, but it's in our wallet. So what Connie's gonna do is talk to us about some of the grants, and then we approve the release of the money so that the Buckskin Activity Alliance can spend their money.
I got it.
Good evening. I know I was here in December and I kind of went over a presentation about what the Buckskin Activity Alliance is, but just to kind of reiterate, our membership is comprised of parents and coaches that recognize all of the extracurricular activities at CV, and our purpose is to financially support them and raise funds to help them purchase larger items that they otherwise couldn't afford as an individual booster club. So currently in our account right now, we have $197,000. And so certain portions that are allocated towards larger projects, over $15,000, and a percentage is allocated towards smaller projects. And the organizations can fill out the application. We revamped that this year just to kind of give us a little better picture of the needs, to be able to be a little bit more responsible with being able to help them with purchases. So I do believe you guys all got copies of the grants, but just to kind of reiterate, the ones that were presented to us this spring was the band presented 2 different grants, one for field and wireless microphones in the amount of $21,348, and another one for a drum set and cart in the amount of $6,034. The football team asked us to purchase them a camcorder so that they could record footage of the players as is required by PIAA. The wrestling team asked for score clock adapters. So currently their volunteer needs require them to have multiple parents running all of the different equipment. So these adapters would enable them to run the clocks with less volunteers. And they do host a number of tournaments, so this would be very helpful to them. The athletic department requested new banners for in the gymnasium. Ours are quite dated, don't match. These new ones would be much more, it would be great to, just to honor our athletes for their achievements. So that was one that was presented to us. That one was in the amount of $10,800. And the CV Sports Performance grant request is for an individual, Steve Bond, who acts as a strength and conditioning coach for all of the teams. So he works with each coach for each sport and helps them to prepare an individualized program to help their students and athletes perform better in their individual activity. So for the feedback from all of the different coaches that we've received is it's a very, very helpful program to have. It does fall outside of the athletic budget, so this is something that we can provide for them. So the $12,000 request was for the stipend to pay Mr. Bond in that capacity, and then there's another additional grant request for the Team Builder app, which is the application they use, subscription to that, so that the students can all log in. They can track their individual performance and their statistics, so it just helps them with their athletic goals. And I think that's all the ones. There is another previously approved grant that is still in I guess limbo is the best way to put it. It's for the batting cages for the JV team and the softball team. The original project was approved back in, I want to say Adele, can you help me out?
I think it was about a year and a half ago.
It was about a year and a half ago. So there's been a little bit of a learning curve on that. As far as the scope of that project, the cost of it exceeds certain thresholds. So in learning, I've learned a lot about the Department of Education and the thresholds for projects going out to bid and whatnot. So we are currently working with Ken Johnson, the athletic director. Adele's been a huge help in navigating some of that and working with the two booster clubs to try and get those batting cages for those students. So I just want to, if there are any questions about any of the grants, we just feel as though at this time that this is a really great way to support our kids.
I have a question about this performance grant proposal. I think that's the one you referred to. Could anyone explain to me how that works? Is that a contract with the district? Is he a district employee, a subcontractor? Just how? What would his status be? And of course, you would have to have the clearance requirements.
Yeah, this is actually a specific grant that is essentially a subscription. We've been approving this for the last 6 years. Steve Bond is a teacher at the high school. So he is already a district employee, and he is the one that works with all of the different teams.
But he would be receiving compensation for this through your organization?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, because there's not currently a district position for this specific role.
Okay, and administration is fine with that?
Right, and as Connie said, he's been doing this for the last 6 years.
Okay. I just know it gets a little bit funny when who's employed by whom.
Correct, right. This is not go to Pvas or anything, this is a stipend that's paid.
So you would like approval of your grants, right?
Correct.
Motion to approve the grants?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mr. Dillon?
Aye.
And Mrs. Goff?
Aye. I would want to add that I have watched the BCCA as it has, or BAA, since it has. Let me try that again. What's in? Activities Alliance, BAA. Since it first started, it's nothing more than an athletic advisory committee. And it has been amazing, the advantage that this organization has given to all of our activities, and not just being able to raise the money, but in allowing activities with smaller participation, therefore smaller numbers of parents to do fundraising back and to recognize all of them. And it always helps when parents focused on one sport come to appreciate the larger picture of all of our activities. So they don't feel so much as if they're fighting each other, just us.
No.
So please take to your group our thanks for all the work that they do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, now the fun part. Dr. Z and Mrs. Heverly Fresher, budget.
First, I'm just gonna do a staffing preview for 22-23 for next year. Again, this is just a preview. As we saw today, we had a candidate that withdrew her name. So we have, I think, 6 or 8 final round interviews with candidates this week. So our calendars get very busy during this time of year, especially when you look at the number of retirements and resignations that we've had. I would say that we average probably around 10 to 12 a year. And we have much more than that this year across all grade levels and across all buildings, except for Brownstown. Brownstown's the only building this year. It happens that way. Every year it's a different building. This year happens to be Brownstown.
Do we have a normal flow of the age of that particular faculty?
We have a number that are under 30 years of experience.
Right.
But when they talk to Pvas and they look at the penalty, because once you have 25 and a certain age, it's a less of a penalty.
Yeah.
So we have more people just taking a look at what they want to do with the rest of their lives.
Get that.
And some of the resignations, they are truly going into another career field. Some that are retiring, like Brian Good, he came into education as a second career. So where he may not have the years of experience in a school district, again, this is a second career. when we have vacancies, earlier in the year, we have teachers that want to request a move either at different grade levels, you know, I'm at Smoketown third grade, I'd love to be at Smoketown fifth grade, or I may want to go from Fritz to Leola. We honor these requests, so we take a list of all the requests, and then when people start retiring and resigning, we try to slide the people in to fill their requests. This year, we were able to honor 8 requests, transfer requests. Sometimes we get late requests because they don't know that a teacher is resigning, because it may be a late resignation or retirement, and someone says, hey, can you consider me? We do on a case-by-case basis. The problem is if you keep chasing your tail, because if you want my job and I want your job, and we never get anybody filled. So that's why we have cutoff dates. All openings are replaced this year either through transfers, postings, or repurposing of positions. Elementary numbers remain fluid. We look at class sizes on an estimate. The problem is, as Katie and Carla had said, they're knocking on doors trying to get people enrolled. And especially for first-time families coming in, those are usually our late enrollers. So when you have numbers like this year with Fritz, they were close. And normally what we do though, if they start getting high in numbers, we bring in aides, teacher aides. Well, this year, like every other organization, we're having trouble with aides coming in. So we're gonna take a look at some numbers. We have a couple of the elementary schools that are okay right now, but we may be coming back to the board and saying we had to hire an extra kindergarten teacher to keep our numbers at an acceptable level. Administration, we are replacing, as you know, the middle school and high school assistant principal positions. Mark was able to sit in on the first round of the middle school assistant principal. So that was successful. Right now, our net savings district-wide starts out at 9,588, but then you have to take out expenses. That's healthcare and the loss of subsidy, because we do receive Pvas reimbursement at 50%. So we lose that revenue. So overall, the net savings is just over $500,000 in staffing this year. That's as of today. It may change if we have to hire teachers to fill other positions. Again, this is just a quick blush to let you know that we have a lot of movement going on this year and a lot of hirings.
Well, hirings are sometimes a good thing to bring in fresh people
They
with
are.
fresh ideas.
They are.
Every time we lose a veteran teacher, that you hate to see go, you end up being thrilled with what you brought in. Okay.
You been able to hire, okay?
You know, surprisingly, we've had quality candidates, quality pool. And what's nice is, we're looking at our student teachers. There's a good crop of young teachers. Catherine was an example. And,
I don't
a
know
tech
how
ed teacher as
surprising-
well.
I don't know how surprising, I think there's a reason why we get a good pool of qualified candidates.
Yeah, it's just, they're just good young teachers to be. The new teacher positions that we have as of today, special education, Sarah talked about adding another verbal behavior classroom. The foundations teacher at the high school, emotional support teacher at Smoketown. Middle school, because of the new buildings, and bringing 6th grade up, we're looking at 4 new teachers and a specialist. And then CVVA, we had Dory Shetter was a part-time 1-year teacher. We found it valuable, and as Kathy said, CVVA is, we're hoping to continue to grow it. Kathy will be, or Dory will be a permanent teacher instead of a 1 year. So we've made that position. Now, we have lost Jen Kraus, who's our elementary coordinator. So if Dory applies for that, there may be another shuffle and another hire.
How many open positions do we have right now?
I don't know. I will find out. I know I'm interviewing for 6 positions this week and early next week. I want to say we have less than a dozen left to fill. Is that a good number, Dawn, Jill? Less than a dozen, you think? Yep.
And by this time next month, it'll be even.
But hopefully by next month, we'll have quite a large number of new teachers in the audience that we can introduce. But we're ahead of the game than we have been in years past. Okay, and again, I talked about late enrollments for elementary. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to address. Yes, ma'am?
Why do we need 4 new teachers for middle school?
Because we wouldn't if we had like the perfect setup, but we have 4 elementary schools coming into one. So I can't just take a music teacher out of one of the elementary schools because I'm sharing that person, or I've pulled out all the 6th grade, but they haven't balanced out evenly. So unless I had a 3-6 building, 1 building, then everything's perfect. But because we have 4 elementaries, when you shift to the middle school, the numbers change. So it's not exactly the same.
I think once we get this moved, May, one thing I'd sort of like to see, we did this once before, we did a time study for our teachers. And at that time, we found a couple of gaps where there were teachers whose assigned time was way low. And sometimes when you're moving so much around, you lose that perspective. So I think once we get everything in place, that might be a good time to repeat that time study.
And I agree with that 100%. We'll do that. We've done that ongoing because Mr. Quirk at the middle school, teachers are in front of kids more often. Going to a 5-block day from a 4-block day at the high school, teachers are in front of kids more often.
Yeah.
So we do maximize the time.
I just remember the time we found one teacher who a good part of the day was involved in a club work, which isn't what's supposed to be what the day was. He was busy all day, but not with assignments. But with all this moving around, sometimes you just don't keep track of every teacher's time. So, but that's in the future. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Now Phyllis will be coming up.
Okay, so the other piece we're going to do tonight is just take a quick preview of what the budget may look like as we go into May and June. So if you remember, May is the proposed final budget, and then June will actually do the final budget. So this is just sort of a preview. The first 2 slides we won't spend a lot of time on because they are repeats, just to kind of give you the context of where we last left off. However, we just go back one, please?
No, sorry.
However, there is one change on this slide, which is the special education exception. If you remember at the last meeting, we had PDE inform us of a change that we needed to make. So it was just under 300,000. It changed that number, so it's now 394, just under 400,000. So it does change the total mills that the district could go up to 0.6. Which would be a 4.19% increase instead of the 3.87 we had shown you previously. So just that has been updated. Then the next slide is, again, just a repeat of sort of where we were when we did the preliminary budget. And then the next slide really dives into the meat of the details of some of the changes that we've made. So I'll kind of cover the revenues first and then the expense side. So you can kind of see each of them in their own silos. So not a lot of changes on the revenue side at this point. Really the big one in taxes has been the earned income tax, which has just continued to be strong throughout. I mean, if you look at the unemployment rate and where we've been, and then wage increases for folks as well, that number we feel really comfortable is going to come in both for this year, and then we can budget for next year to be higher than we had expected. The state subsidy, I had shown you what the governor proposed. They've worked through the appropriations hearings in Harrisburg, but there's such a difference between the governor's proposal and where everybody else is that I'm just not comfortable at this point telling you, do we put in 200,000 or 500,000? What is the number? So just know that there will be an addition there. I don't know what it's going to be yet. And that's sort of the magic of getting to May and June, is hopefully those numbers come a little closer, and then we can make some decisions based on that. So minor change in the federal subsidy with access, and then as Dr. Z had mentioned, pretty big number. And again, I'll cover it on the expense side with staffing. But if you remember, when we do staffing, part of the benefits for staffing are retirement and Social Security, and we get a 50% reimbursement from the state. on those. So even though we may be saving ourselves some money, when we put the benefits through, then there's a little bit of loss of subsidy that goes with it. So if you go to the next slide, then you'll see the expense changes. So again, that staffing number, you take the 649, and you have to net that 145 out against it, which gets you to the $504,000 that Dr. Z mentioned in his presentation. We did actually have a much higher staffing decrease number. If you remember when we showed you staffing originally back in December, between the new middle school staffing requests, new staff needed, I mean, we were well over $2 million, actually close to $2.5 million. We have come in at about $1.2 million, $1.3 million in savings, but you're not all seeing it there because of the parens that I put on, which is including healthcare. So sort of the bad news of that side is when we do staffing, it's salary and benefits together. So outside of retirement, Social Security, the other big factor is healthcare. And unfortunately this year, we are still seeing our healthcare numbers are trending really hot. So the first blush of the budget that we looked at for next year was about 10.6%. When we rolled the last month's numbers in, it went up to 13%. So we really felt like we needed to make an adjustment there to make sure that we were covered on the healthcare side. And then the other numbers that you can see, smaller in nature, I'm not going to cover each of them unless you have specific questions. Building budgets, curriculum, CVVA, all driving out some savings there. Some of that's just, going through and fine tuning things in the building budgets. One of the changes that we made was making sure that sixth grade wasn't counted both in the elementaries and then also in the new middle school. And we did have some double counting there. So it's not the entire 250,000, but some numbers needed to come out. On the maintenance transportation side, that one went up, and it's actually not a relation necessarily to the fuel costs, but there is a state indicator that's used called the transportation index, and it is the highest it's been in, oh my goodness, I think it's like 30 years. It's 7%, and I think the last time it was that high, it was 6 point something percent. So felt like we needed to make an adjustment there, even though it moved us in the wrong direction to accommodate for that. You'll see some other numbers that are, not huge numbers going one way or the other in the contracted services, working through some movement with IU classrooms. And then one of the other things that we did as we looked at this budget was, speaking of the middle school, kind of cleaned up some differences between what will be covered in the new middle school through the middle school regular budget versus some equipment that we had in the budget that will go through what we call FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment that's part of the bond issue, because they're big one-time expenses that we're not going to have each year. So we'll roll them into that, and then they won't hit the regular budget. So all told, about $1.1 million in savings that have come through our budget cut and review process. And so the next slide then shows you what the budget summary looks like. If you look at the official preliminary budget, this is a little bit different than the second slide I showed you. So this is without the index and exception. So this is kind of the the higher level approach. So you can take, if our index produces about 1.7 million, if we go the whole way to the 3.4%, you can decrease it from those numbers and kind of see where we'd come in. No exception, just the index at that point. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that we've made substantial cuts, so we're down to around 3 million. If we go to that same index, that puts us at about $1.3 million remaining to kind of get us balanced. So remember that $1.3 million though is using $600,000 of fund balance in the PSERS rate stabilization fund and then the healthcare stabilization fund. So if we could erase all of it, at the end of the day, we'd still be showing a $600,000 negative, which is actually what we did last year. A little bit unbalanced, but it was planned use of fund balance to be able to have everything come together. And speaking of fund balance, last slide just shows you all the different assignments of fund balance. And I just reviewed the rating report that Standard & Poor's set today. So that should be coming to you when we get the official report. I'll actually send it to Dr. Z along with the PowerPoint that Scott had mentioned that I put together for the rating agency. And you can, if you are a nerd like me and you want to look at it, great, and if you don't, that's fine too, but at least you'll have it. We can put it in your Schoology page, so if you want to refer back to it. But you can see some of those fund balance numbers, and that planned use will be there. One of the things, though, they did mention in the rating report was that our ability to maintain these fund balances and give ourselves some room, should we have areas where we need to call on those reserves, was one thing that helped us keep our strong credit rating. So they definitely look at this stuff, ask us questions about it, and even commented on it. And then the last slide is just showing the cost to the homeowner on those two, both with just the index or if we would choose to do that exception. So at this point, there are still some changes left to be made to the budget. I mentioned the state subsidy. One of the things that is still in the budget is the track work that we're going to do. We could certainly take that and move that out of our capital reserve, but it's a little bit of like a Peter Paul kind of situation. We're going to save that money for future projects. So if I pull it out and use it now, then it's not there later. So it is what it is. The other thing is, as Scott presented last week and Tim was here tonight, to Mr. Talley's point, interest rates are still looking really good for us to borrow some more money for this next phase of projects, but a little bit of that's about how much debt we can fit in the budget at any time. So we have not put any of that new debt service into the budget from the column that Scott showed you, so that would also have to go in. So there will be some changes that we'll continue to make as we go through between now and May, but just wanted to give you a preview so you kind of know what to expect. Get the wheels turning. If you have questions or further things you want us to look at or consider, we can get them on the table now so that we're not trying to scramble that stuff together at the last minute in June. So and of course the 5-year projection spreadsheet is there. It's attached. I don't cover it, but if you want to dive into the numbers in a little more detailed basis, they're there for you. Any questions?
Comments? I'll be quite frank. The tax increase that was in the index was higher than I would have hoped. So the tax increase with the extra exception is definitely higher than I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
I'm sure that's not a surprise.
But that feedback is helpful so that we kind of know what we're
I
shooting
don't know
for.
that I could support something that's going to cost $130 more every year. Because I always remind myself that it's cumulative. They pay that every year.
Yes, ma'am.
And it adds up really fast. And usually we're closer to the $60 or so mark. So that's a larger increase than our residents have seen for a while. And it doesn't sit well with me, because every time I open my tax bill, I wonder who's the idiot that passed this, and I realize it was me. So I don't want to be beating myself on the head for this.
But yes, give us any feedback, so.
Can you provide a history of our tax changes, say over the past 15 years?
So would you like to see just what the rates are, the millage rates? Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, when I send you the rating agency PowerPoint, it's in there, yeah.
Thank you.
That was one of the things I shared with them as well.
How far back does it go?
I think 10 years.
Okay.
But if you want more, we can go back
Okay.
over it.
And somewhere I have a list every year I wrote down how much it was.
Yeah, one of the things that you all approved tonight in the consent agenda was that forecast 5 stuff, and it has nice history and it does nice comparisons that show us against the other districts in the county, other enrollment-like districts. So any of that anybody wants to dig into, one thing we can do is just bring everybody together. We can throw it up on the screen and we can just run them and show you the charts.
Yeah, it might be nice to have that condensed in one central area for presentation.
Yep.
I'll tell you the number one reason we are not, we tax almost annually is because Congress and the governor have not agreed to fairly fund our district, ever. We are underfunded every year. And as Ided says, that $100 goes over and over, it's $9 million that we would get every year. So I can't encourage our community enough to write their legislature and the governor and there is a fair funding formula. We can't wait for 50 years for it to roll out. It has to be compressed so we get our fair funding so that the burden is not on our local taxpayers, but it's on the state. Because they're not changing the amount of money that they're giving out, it's how much they're giving to each district.
Right, plus it's like we found out in our last meeting, although they did do the same sort of thing with special ed. The pot of money came out of it the same.
Right.
So that makes little or no difference. And when they did do that for special ed, that didn't include the charter schools. They're still charging as if they're giving these huge services to special ed students that they're not. But we pay it. Sometimes it boggles the mind.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And speaking of what the charter schools are doing, we're now down to that resolution that I asked you to consider joining in with a huge, huge majority of the rest of the schools in Pennsylvania. Do I have any comments or concerns about passing that?
Would it help if we all signed it? Instead of just having you have more signatures on it?
We could. The truth of it is, this particular one is considered part of all the other 471.
Just looks nice when a lot of signatures.
Well, if you want to do something that looks nice, send your own email.
Fine.
And, no, seriously.
No, I didn't do it.
To multiply the amount of feedback they get, rather than one letter with 9 names, 9 letters.
Put it in my place.
Yes, she did.
I would entertain a motion.
Motion? I move we approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Oh, you're a second.
Second.
I'm gonna take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye, loud and clear.
Aye.
Thank you. I will be quite frank, I literally shut down discussion of charter schools at my IU meeting. It was like, I've heard all this before. Legislators have heard all this before. They know what we want. And all we want is them to be accountable for their money and their students. I've stopped even saying they're not fulfilling their purpose, because they never have, but some days it's just more than I can stand. Okay, we will move on to any questions for the Finance and Operations report? Any questions from the Curriculum and Construction report? Are there any federal funds?
No, ma'am.
My IU and PSBA and LSA reports are there. The only thing I would add to my, PSBA report would be, is a bill to form a clearinghouse for online courses that would be available to public schools, private schools, home ed programs, and the public in general. I'm not quite sure what it says or what it stops us from doing on our own, or who's going to review these courses, or if it's just a resource center. So until I find out what else is hidden in that, I really can't say if that's a good or a bad thing. But somebody out there is looking at that. CTC report, do you have anything to share with us?
Yeah, real quick, just, well, I'm really impressed with the whole organization and everything. Do a really good job, Dr. Savin and stuff. He's phenomenal over there. They do have, real quick, if anybody's interested, 2 fundraisers. They have Fly on the Run, May 4th, it's a banquet. Then May 5th, they have an auction and a fly fishing tournament. I don't know if anybody's avid fly fishers, but that's a really big deal, and they bring in a lot of money that way. They also they have a program in one of the construction classes where the students build sheds throughout the year, and then they sell them at the end of the year. So they do have those. If you're interested in that too, I can give you the information for it. Ask me about it. They're selling the sheds that they build then. And I'd also like to acknowledge Lily Grace Falk from here at CV. She attends the Brownstown campus and the Interactive Media and Web Design program. She got the Student of the Month for March for the Brownstown campus. So I'd like to acknowledge her.
They're fly fishing, whatever they're running. You probably don't know, but I used to teach broadcasting.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Never cease to amaze me.
I know, isn't that a surprise? I had my own fly fishing, fly tying rod building business.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm amazing.
I never did it.
You are amazing.
I know.
See you in the back of one of those
If
fish
you let
tanks,
me
you know.
know what that is, if I have anything, I still have, you know, in my little warehouse to donate or be part of that, I'd be glad to help.
Okay, yeah, it'd be excellent.
But one
You
of
said
my-
you were a secret agent, it would not surprise me.
It would surprise you to find out I also used to groom pets for a living. Anything else you need to know, folks? And the good thing is, most of my secrets will die with me. So there's the good part. Construction team, do we have anything from
Ken's
them?
gonna go through the report there. I'm gonna play Fred this evening, so. So construction's still ongoing, some updates from, which is a good thing, but some updates from the report that Fred actually put together. The crane is coming tomorrow to set all the chillers and the rooftop equipment, so they're getting all that prepared, so there's a big steel area you see there on the roof, the chillers go there. The majority of the roof is dried in. They've actually been drying in the roof area or the plaza that sits over top of the library. So they were working on that at the end of last week. That has now since been dried in. Majority of the windows have been installed in the 3-story portion of the building. They're working on measuring up for the storefront framing, they call it, that will enclose the stair towers, those things. A lot of work's going on internally, drywall, finishing, paint work's going on, insulating a ductwork, insulating a piping, so that the 3-story classroom portion is really starting to show finishes coming into play. So floor tiles going down, wall tiles going up in the bathroom areas. So it's nice to see those finishes. You know, we've been looking at blank walls for long enough, so they've been making a lot of progress internally in the building. A lot of masonry work still going on from the the tech ed over to gymnasium, cafeteria, that side of the building. There's masonry going on internally. Looks like food service equipment will be showing up soon, at least with the walk-in coolers and the hoods over the cooking equipment. So they needed walls up first before those pieces could come in. Site contractors working on extending the walk path around the backside of the building. They're working on cleaning up the area to install additional curbing, get the loading dock finished up, and they'll see some additional paving going on. So I know they've been talking about bringing in the rest of the forest, the trees that are showing up on site. So, but yeah, things are moving at least in a good direction.
We
So
reach a point where all of a sudden it starts to look like a real building.
yeah. And they've been working on rolling the standing seam roofing in the parking lot. So it comes in a machine they bring in and start rolling that out. So we should see that going up on the roof here shortly as well. So
Thanks, Ken.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any board members who are serving as reps on any other district or county boards that would like to report back? If not, we'll go to a second place for anyone in the public to address the board. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Board matters. Do any board members have any initiatives or concerns they'd like us to consider? I would just bring our attention to, and I don't usually read the ads that come in my CV mailbox, but there was one from DARE for a program that they're running that I thought was interesting. I don't know how it works. I think you gotta take a look at it. I think I may have kept. I'm not sure exactly what it covers, but I know it's part of the DARE program and we participate in that. I think I probably have the cover sheet at home that I looked at. The dates for our next meetings are the 25th for our retreat, the 9th and the 16th for our meetings. And if there is no comment, I will take a a motion to adjourn for legal and personnel reasons?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? If not, we are adjourned.